Today we don't need much. We're going to be building the cane that you requested from our tall succulent tutorial. What I have today, as far as colors, this dark green, I can't tell you how to mix this, because what this is ends off of a green and white cane and ends off of a green and black cane. There was a lot of black, so that darkened the green up quite a bit. But my point is this is all scrap ends melded into an almost muddy green on the darker side. So this is your high contrast dark color. Then over here, this little ball of delight was made from primarily Primo translucent, which I added. You can see where I cut little slivers off of here, and I'll take my ball and add just a tiny little sliver of green until I have the hue I want, but I want that to be mostly transparent. Same with the white. This is a ball. The ball is primarily Primo translucent, and once again I literally shave like little curls of color off, and I roll it through my machine and mix it until I can tell there's white in here. As you can see, it's almost more of an ecru compared to the white block. I want just enough white that this looks white when it sits on its own. See, that looks white. It's really an off-white. But a little bit at a time, until you don't want it too opaque. The light still shines through this. Same with this. It's kind of important because when this dark green gets up against that much translucent, you haven't blended anything, but when we do our pasta machine technique, it adheres to the green and blends, your eye blends it together, and this transparency in these two balls is key. So mostly transparent, touch of bright, what is that, a leaf green, grass green, I don't even know what they call that. And then this is just plain white, mostly a ball of translucent, and your tissue blade. Okay, now we've rolled out strips of our balls. I put this one in on my fattest setting, which is a 0. Then I went ahead and I did my green on a number 4, and I did my white on a number 3. So different thicknesses, 0, 4, 3. And what we're going to do is just simply stack them, one on top of the other. Okay, gorgeous. Got a little bit of overhang on the end there. Get that out of there. Not too bad over here. And there you have the beginning of your stripes. Now, you've seen me do this before. Someone suggested that I put this on my grid and I can cut a better square. So this one's for you. I'm laying it right on my grid. Got 1, 2, 3 squares going this way, so I'm going to come over here, do 1, 2, 3 squares. Much better way to measure. Go ahead, scoop that up with your blade. Place it on the next one. Now I've left these ends kind of rough, so you have to look over here on this side to make sure that you're lining them up. I just don't do a whole lot of trimming. It makes it easier to trim all at once at the end, I feel. You could trim those off ahead of time if you wanted to. I'm not going to. That's a third stack. I'm going to go for one more, number 4. So that's 4 layers. I have a little bit left over. That'll end up being it. Okay, so you have your 4. But we're going to do it again, and I only had this strip left over, which was enough for 2 more squares, so I went ahead and made up another so that I can get 4 pieces out of this. I'm just using this to measure, or if you used your squares like you were smart, you come back in, it's 3 this way, 3 that way. We're going to make another one. 1, 2, 3. That's why I had to go back and make another strip. I needed this whole other strip for one more square, but things like this happen. So there's another 4 for this side. Okay. So now you have your 2 stacks of 4. And we're going to take them and put the white strips together, not the green stripe. We want that to be on the outside. So there'll be a thicker white strip in the middle when we're all done. So now I have my block. Do some compressing, try and work those air bubbles out. Make sure I have my design squished together nice and neat. Now we have these ratty ends to contend with, and this is why I just leave them alone. Once I get my block, I can come in here and shave off the edge. Just nice. All those edges come off at once. I am a shortcut kind of person when I can, and this is one of those times. You can trim along as you go, if that makes your heart happy. I like to trim at the end. There we go. So now I have this block, but I need to get it into a triangle. And when I do that, I want each of these lines to meet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this side and this side. This is my midline. And I'm going to, I think you've seen me do it before. I'm going to make a Pac-Man. I put my finger in there to start putting a bend in it. Get it started. Now as you do this, you see here how it's pushing out my middles? Keep pushing those middles back in. It's going to want to distort out the side as you're folding it, but you keep pushing those back in as you fold. You don't want them to just keep fanning out over the side. Not trying to change these shapes. I want this line to stay the same. I'm trying to make these meet in the middle. So as you can see, it takes a little bit of coaxing to get it started. Once you get it started, now there's my midline. That white line's coming up to meet that white line. And then that green line's coming up. See how that starts to meet together? Now, I haven't pushed it together in the middle yet because I'm going to come back here and line up this end. There's that center line. I want these 2 green lines. I want these 2 stripes to touch. So you start coaxing those together. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can come up here and seal your top together. Alright, so now you have this, looks like an old-timey radio shape in a block. Now as promised, I'm going to show you how to reduce this triangle. So I'm going to stop messing with this and let it rest for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to reduce a triangle. Okay, this has been resting for about 15 minutes in my fairly cool apartment. If it was hotter out, I'd probably leave it. But it's fairly chilly in here, so that's good enough. Okay, so we have our weird arced old-timey radio looking shape, and I want to get this into a triangle almost half the size. First thing I do is set it with the point up towards me, and I just press down. Now this causes it to bow out, but I'm going to press down on all the corners. Now I'm kind of pulling, kind of pressing. The idea is to keep the shape while changing the length and the volume. So that was from my first press down. Now I've come to all 3 corners and have it moved out again. I'm going to come back to the top and I'm going to do the same thing. press it out. And you see me come over here and put my fingers on this end. It's because when you press on the top, it bows out the sides. But I'd like to keep this from happening too much. It reduces. So put your fingers over here while you're pushing towards this end. So if I'm pushing this way, I'm putting my fingers here to keep the corner in. If I'm pushing this way, I'm going to put my fingers on this side to lend support. Now, don't just push the top. See, that's putting up really arc. You got to come down these sides, push them back out all the way down. Keep that shape. Now come down here and get these corners out to match the ones you just did. I'm pushing this way. I'm pushing this way from approximately the middle. And then every now and then you'll see me grab these ends and just stretch. Clay is very stretchy. And a lot of people think that the reduction process is all about manhandling these shapes, but you can stretch and coax. Now I'm going to do this pretty fast, and what I want to tell you is that if you're used to doing or interested in doing complex canes, this fast method that I'm showing you here might not work out too good. It'll cause some distortion. See how my lines are wiggly? If I wanted these to be perfectly straight no matter what, I'd have let this rest a mighty long time, and I would be much gentler with this process. But that's the beauty of these leaves, is you can keep. See, sometimes when I'm pushing here, it causes a sprawl out along this way. But you want to control that. You want that all to be the same width. So I'm going to come down here and regulate some of that sprawl, right? So I'm getting a little bit of distortion on my ends, but I don't have them way out over and clumped together. And that's from putting my fingers there. So as you can see, we started out with a piece about this wide. And in the 2 minutes I've been talking to you here, we've gotten it to double that size. But I'm going to keep going. You can tell if you're reducing things a little wonky. I got a little bit of wavy in there, but for the most part these lines are fairly straight going across. And if you're doing a good job reducing the full length of your cane, those stripes are going to hold pretty straight for you. See how it almost pushes that right over there. Move that point out. See how the point is traveling back the cane? I don't want that. I want to keep moving that edge out towards that edge. So this motion up the side on the triangle. Now I've got a pretty good chunk of it. Watch this. Where's my top? There we go. When I set it down, I'm going to set this end down, and I'm pulling a little bit and setting it down on my glass as I go. A little bit of pull, a little bit of pull, a little bit of pull. Make sure that these edges have stayed the same distance. There, I got some flare out. Push those ends in. Okay, and then roll it over and even it all out from that stretch. Make sure to push in along here, not just at the point. Move it at the point and then move your fingers along here to keep that plane flat. This is a hard thing to describe, and it has a lot to do with feel. I'm using my fingertips constantly to look for big bulges or things that feel wider than other things. I rely on my sense of touch so much for this, less than my sight. I could probably do this with my eyes closed fairly well because I'm so used to the feel of the cane. I know if those sides are flat. This takes practice. But the good news is that for leaves, it's so forgiving because there's so many wavy lines in nature and plants, even plants with stripes and patterns. They're so wavy and there's a little bit of randomness to it, so it's pretty forgiving of this reduction process. There's no way I would reduce a complex cane this quickly, but it works rather well for leaf canes. Now the distortion is getting what you'd expect on the ends. To some degree, you're going to have some. You can't avoid it, but I promise you that this finger on the end, while you're pushing in this direction, support this end. Pushing in this direction, support this end. It works. I've tried it without it, and I get way more gummed up ends. Now I'm going to do that stretch technique. I've got another nice chunk. I've got some pretty good shape. Nice straight edges going. So what I'm going to do is that stretch technique, I'm going to go from the other end this time. I'm going to set this end down. It's stuck on that glass. And then I'm going to gently pull, press it down, pull, press it down, pull. I'm pulling ever so gently. You can just feel that clay shift a little bit under your fingers. But I've just added like a ½ inch in length without really having to do a whole lot of work by working that stretch. So I did the stretch, and now I'm going to go around and make sure that it's nice and even and geometric and that everything else is back in line. Good job. Alright, feeling good. Make sure this edge hasn't creeping out. As you slide your fingers along, you'll be able to feel if they're going like this, because you've got waves in it, and you want to take those out so that when you run your fingers, it's a nice straight motion and your fingers aren't going wah, 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 wah around. That's how you know you're getting it good on all sides.